Don't leave Hia. Synopsis. Because of his workaholic tendencies, Hia Sin, the owner of a neighborhood auto repair shop, ended up being abandoned by his beloved wife Puna, who chose to run off with one of the shop's employees. Heartbroken, Hia Sin found himself unable to eat or sleep properly. Sroi, his younger sister, stepped in to help by hiring a young woman named Yupa, who was desperate for money after being scammed in a money-sharing scheme. Sroi promised to pay off all of Yupa's debts if she agreed to mend Hia Sin's broken heart. Yupa accepted the deal, but will this lead to a chance at true love? Stay tuned to find out. Hia might not be the most skilled, but Hia loves his wife the most. Remember that. Hia Sin. Chapter 1. Sroi's Plan. Hia, where's Puna gone off to? It was the 8th person that day asking about his wife. Syntheporn, or Hia Sin, looked annoyed, his heart tightening at the question. Why was everyone so obsessed with asking about Puna? But the pain of her leaving wasn't even the worst part. It was that she had packed up and run off with Loi, a Laotian employee who had been sweet-talking her with steamed buns for who knows how long. All he had left was Puna's farewell letter. If someone asks me that one more time, I'm going to charge for inflating their tires. That was enough to silence the curious. Hia Sin owned an auto repair shop that serviced almost every type of vehicle, and he dreamed of one day fixing airplanes. His wife Puna was 5 years younger than him and known for her skimpy outfits, making her popular with both employees and customers alike. Now that his beloved wife had left, Hia had lost all motivation. He spent his days dozing off, an old hat covering his face, with the sound of his bored snores echoing through the shop. Hia. Sroi, his 30-year-old younger sister, walked into the shop carrying a lunch pail. She sighed, shaking her head at the sight of her brother's disheveled state. Hia, I brought you lunch, she called out. Despite her heavily pregnant belly, Sroi was determined to ensure her brother ate proper, hot meals. Hia, get up. It's already noon. She shook his sturdy frame. As the son of a Chinese immigrant family, Hia Sin had grown up working hard, resulting in a muscular build and rough hands. But despite his rugged demeanor, there was no denying he had a rugged charm. Ugh. Don't bother me, Sroi. I'm trying to sleep. You can't just sleep all the time. Look at your work. It's piling up. Those guys aren't as skilled as you, Hia. Get up. It's been nearly a week. How much longer are you going to mope over her? Sroi scolded him relentlessly. Syntheporn sat up reluctantly, glaring at his sister with a tired expression. You're trying to nag me until my ears fall off, aren't you, Sroi? He muttered sarcastically, glancing at the blazing midday sun. Pretty much, Hia. Mom even asked me to nag you before she passed. Now go wash your face. I'll set the food out for you. Hurry up. Her cheerful voice left no room for argument. With a resigned sigh, Syntheporn got up to wash his face, feeling his bitterness about his wife's betrayal fade just a little. You shouldn't be pushing yourself like this, Sroi. You're due to give birth any day now, he grumbled at his sister as she poured iced coffee into a chilled cup. Then hurry up and find a wife, Hia, so I won't have to worry about you anymore, she retorted quickly. Hia shook his head and plopped down onto a makeshift chair crafted from a truck tire. Who'd want to marry a workaholic like me? He grabbed a spoon and took a sip of the spicy tom yum soup, slurping loudly. This is great. Which restaurant is this from? I made it myself, Hia. But once I give birth, you'll have to rely on meal delivery services. Might as well get a weekly subscription, Sroi teased, though her worry for her brother shone through. He was the one who had worked hard to support her education up to a vocational diploma. Don't worry about me. I won't starve. I can always cook instant noodles, Hia replied nonchalantly, stuffing rice into his mouth as his hunger finally caught up to him. But I forbid you from eating instant noodles. You never let me go hungry, so I'll make sure to find you a wife no matter what. Ha! You're really serious about this, huh, Sroi? Syntheporn chuckled good-naturedly, waving to his employees to join him for lunch. Hey Jad. Kun. Come eat. My sister brought enough for everyone, he called out generously. His 2 employees quickly washed their hands and faces before sitting down to join the meal. Wow, Hia, there's tom yum today. Kun exclaimed happily. Quit talking and grab some plates. Sroi scolded, though her tone was affectionate. The employees quickly fetched plates, and the group settled down to eat, creating a warm and lively atmosphere. On her way home, Sroi decided to stop by the market, where a young vendor named Yupa sold a variety of delicious snacks. Lately, Yupa had been in a sour mood after being scammed in a money-sharing scheme. Seeing an opportunity, Sroi approached her with a plan. "How's it going, Yupa? Almost sold out." Sroi greeted the young woman, waddling over with her pregnant belly. "This is all that's left, Sroi. What would you like to buy?" Despite her stress, Yupa maintained her cheerful demeanor, always ensuring her customers felt welcome. "I'll take everything. Split it into 2 bags for me, okay?" "Sure thing, Sroi." Yupa swiftly packed the snacks, while Sroi calculated the total in her head. "How much, Yupa?" "Just 60 baht, I'll throw in 3 extra packs for free," Yupa said generously. Sroi smiled. This was exactly the kind of woman she needed. "You're so kind." "Oh, Yupa, would you mind helping me with something?" "I'll pay you for it," Sroi offered, knowing she didn't have much time left before her baby arrived. The 20-year-old looked surprised. "What is it, Sroi? If it's not too hard, I won't even charge you for it." Yupa wanted to repay Sroi's kindness, as she was a regular customer and often hired her to make large trays of snacks for events. "Well, it's not too hard, but it's not exactly easy either. Come closer, and I'll explain everything." Chapter 2. Yupa accepts the job. "Excuse me, is the boss of the shop here?" Yupa called out as she pedaled her bicycle to the auto repair shop. She asked a teenager who was busily patching a tire. "Yes, ma'am." "Hang on," the boy replied before shouting at the top of his lungs. Hia Sin. Someone's here asking for you." "Who is it?" came a rough, raspy voice. Yupa flinched slightly but mustered a smile. "No idea, but she's really pretty, Hia," the boy teased, glancing at Yupa. Her cheeks turned crimson. A quick sound of footsteps followed, accompanied by mumbling, "Who could it be?" Moments later, Hia Sin appeared, smiling at her. "You're here to see me?" Yupa hurriedly handed over a bag of snacks to the nearly 40-year-old man. Sroi asked me to deliver these, and she said I'll be bringing them every day from now on," she explained. I can't possibly eat all this," Hia replied. But Sroi insisted. "Tomorrow, I'll also be bringing meals." She subscribed for weekly deliveries, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, until she's able to resume her deliveries, Yupa explained firmly, pushing the snack bag into his hands. "How much is this going to cost?" Sroi has already paid for everything," she said with a smile and turned to her bicycle. Syntheporn stared at the bag in disbelief. "What a thoughtful sister. Hey, you guys. Come grab some snacks," he shouted to his employees. Perched on her bike, Yupa watched Hia Sin with admiration. She had always known his family to be kind-hearted, even though Hia was currently in a slump after his wife left him for being a workaholic. As she cycled home, she had the misfortune of running into one of her creditors. Yupa braked hard, almost falling over. "Pi Yupa." "Oh, hello, Pure," she greeted, forcing a smile. "When will you pay me back? Mom keeps sending me to collect every day." Pure complained with a sour face. Feeling guilty, Yupa pulled out her small wallet, counted her money, and handed over 1,000 baht. "Here's 1,000 for now, Pure. I'm trying my best to earn more. Please bear with me," Yupa pleaded. "Fine, but I want the remaining 6,000 soon." Pure snapped before walking away, swaying her hips dramatically. Yupa sighed heavily. She had trusted a friend too much and let them handle a money-sharing scheme worth 80,000 baht, only for them to vanish. Now, she was left to face the consequences, enduring scoldings and curses daily. She recalled Sroi's offer. Help Hia Sin forget his workaholic ways and move on from his ex-wife, and Sroi would pay off all her remaining debts in full. Yupa had never had a boyfriend and had no idea how to even start. What if one day Hia Sin found out she was only pursuing him for money? How would he feel? She was torn. The money would solve her problems, but Hia wasn't a bad person. He was good-looking, kind-hearted, and financially stable. "I'll think about it tonight," she decided with a sigh. Syntheporn stretched his arms and legs, feeling the strain of the day. Evening had fallen, and the streets were bustling with cars as people headed home to their families. Meanwhile, he was left to wallow in loneliness for another night. "Hia, I'm heading home," Kun yelled loudly, the sound of tools clattering into wooden boxes echoing around the shop.
Yeah, yeah.
Take care, Syntheporn replied, shouting back. He walked over to the second building to turn on the lights. The leftover snacks still hung on a large nail, so he carried them into the kitchen to munch on. He planned to grab a light porridge meal later from a nearby street vendor. Life without a wife was unbearably empty. Even though Puna hadn't taken great care of him, she had been some form of companionship, and he had loved and looked after her well. Maybe it was his fault too, as Puna used to complain. He never took her out, even though he would readily give her money to buy gold from Yib's shop. He had always been too absorbed in work to pay attention to her feelings. Munch, munch. The more he thought about it, the faster he ate the pandan-flavored rice cake, the sweetness dissolving in his mouth, bringing a momentary sense of peace. This is delicious, he murmured. The flavor was familiar, something he had eaten many times before. It surprised him to think the young vendor had made it. If she became his wife, he could eat snacks this good every day. Get a grip, Sin. Who would want to marry a workaholic like you? He muttered to himself, shaking his head. The pain of being abandoned by his wife was gone now, but loneliness had taken its place, growing stronger as time passed. Munch, munch. He finished every snack in the bag, competing against his own wandering thoughts to push them aside, even if just for a little while. Hia! Hia! Syntheporn jumped, almost dropping his spoon. Who's yelling at this hour? He quickly put down his spoon and wiped his mouth hastily. The shop's closed already, he shouted. Chapter 3. A chaotic day. Here's some hot fried rice, Hia, Yupa said as she placed the dish on the marble table. Syntheporn felt guilty, knowing his situation had inconvenienced so many, including his sister. It's too much. I just finished all the snacks earlier, he said, feeling awkward. It's fine. I'll eat with you, Hia, Yupa replied. Ha? Really, I haven't eaten yet either, she said, looking at him with her big, innocent eyes. Hia froze for a moment. Did Sroi hire you to do this? He asked knowingly. Yupa gave him a sheepish smile. I'm just lonely, Hia. Hia frowned, disliking pity from anyone. Well, I'm not lonely. You should go home. You're a young woman, you shouldn't be wandering around, making your parents worry, he said dismissively. As he spoke, he noticed her bicycle's tires were underinflated. He walked over, grabbed the bike, and started pumping air into them. Yupa blinked at him, surprised. The chain is old too. What if it snaps on your way home? Hia tinkered with the bicycle, his hands moving skillfully. It wasn't long before he was done. All set. Ride safely, and be careful not to get your skirt caught in the chain, he advised, sounding like a father lecturing his child. Thank you so much, Yupa said, clasping her hands together in gratitude. Yeah. Go now, he replied. Even after she had pedaled away, Syntheporn couldn't help but worry about her, feeling annoyed at his sister for making things unnecessarily complicated. The next morning, Hia nearly spat out his mouthwash when he saw Yupa standing at his door, holding a bag of food with a faint smile. Here's breakfast, she said. Thanks. Okay, you can go now, he replied curtly, quickly retreating into the house. He felt bad for her but didn't want her wasting her time on a man as clueless about love as he was. Meanwhile, Yupa was selling her snacks with a heavy heart. She doubted she would receive payment from Sroi, as Hia showed no interest in her at all. Yupa! The loud, brash voice of Aunt Com startled her. The older woman stood with her hands on her hips, glaring at her. Yes, Auntie. I'm here to collect the money you owe me. Aunt Com barked, her confrontational tone making Yupa feel cornered. I don't have it, Auntie. I don't even have 1,000 baht left, Yupa said, her voice trembling. What? How can that be? Everyone in the neighborhood knew Aunt Com's reputation for ruthlessness, even towards her own family. Yupa clasped her hands together in a pleading gesture. Aunt Com, please give me more time. I didn't pocket any of the money. I was just holding it for someone else, she explained. Enough excuses. Aunt Com slammed her hand down on the snack table, making a loud bang. Sroi! Yupa's savior arrived, heavily pregnant but unyielding. She tapped Aunt Com on the shoulder, prompting the older woman to turn around in surprise. What do you want, Sroi? How much does Yupa owe you? 7,000 baht. Not a single cent has come my way. Before Aunt Com could continue her tirade, Sroi handed her an envelope containing the full amount. Aunt Com's eyes widened in shock. What's this? All debts are settled now. You can leave, Sroi said firmly. Aunt Com nodded, begrudgingly accepting the money before walking away. Yupa wiped the sweat from her brow, relieved to be free of that burden. Yupa, how's Hia Sin doing? Sroi asked as she sat down on a cheap plastic chair, wincing from the strain of her pregnancy. He doesn't care about me at all, He even told me to leave, Yupa admitted. Don't be discouraged. Hia is just putting on a tough act. You'll need to be more persistent though. I'm about to give birth any day now, and I'm constantly worried about him, Sroi said, though her expression betrayed her own sadness. I've never had a boyfriend, I don't know what to do, Yupa confessed. It's not hard. Come here, I'll teach you, Sroi said, motioning for Yupa to come closer. What should I do, Yupa asked, leaning in. You just have to keep at it. Even the hardest stone eventually yields to the persistence of dripping water, Sroi said with determination, clearly wanting Yupa to become her sister-in-law. But I'm too shy for that. Then you need to practice. Ugh, sitting like this is so uncomfortable, Sroi said, shifting restlessly in her seat. Are you in pain, It's just some discomfort. Oh no! Sroi exclaimed, her expression suddenly panicked. Yupa noticed a wet spot on Sroi's skirt. What's that wet spot? Yupa asked, pointing. What? Oh no. Yupa, go get Hia Sin. Tell him I'm about to give birth. Huh. Okay. Yupa panicked, calling a neighbor to help while she borrowed a motorbike with a sidecar to rush to Hia Sin. The sound of a roaring motorbike startled Syntheporn, who assumed it was a reckless teenager. But when the bike stopped at his shop, he froze in shock. What the? He waved his arms to stop the rider. Yupa braked abruptly, nearly toppling over. Where did you get that? Is that your bike? He asked. Hia. Sroi is about to give birth. She sent me to get you. Yupa explained, panting. Hia quickly jumped onto the sidecar, and Yupa started the engine again, heading back to the house. His employees, Jod and Kun, watched the commotion from the shop entrance, puzzled. What just happened? Where's Hia going? Kun asked. No idea. I came out the same time you did, Jod replied, annoyed. Minutes later, the sidecar returned, but this time it was empty. Hia Sin jumped out, cursing under his breath. Damn it! The bike isn't working. How am I supposed to get her to the hospital? Yupa drove off again while Hia Sin fetched his 4-door pickup truck to follow. What the heck just happened? Kun asked again. Sroi must be having her baby, Jod replied before they both went back to work as if nothing had happened. Chapter 4. A smile. When the baby's first cries echoed from behind the green curtain, both Syntheporn and Yupa nearly jumped with joy. The baby's born. Yes. The voice is so sharp, it must be a girl, Hia guessed confidently. But Hia, boys can have sharp voices too, Yupa argued. Really? How would I know? I was just guessing, he said, scratching his head as he peered towards the entrance hallway. Where's Sak? Why isn't he here yet? Sak, Sroi's husband, was a Thai man whose family owned a famous riverside noodle shop. The shop was so popular with both locals and tourists that Sak often had to help his mother select fresh seafood. After a while, a nurse dressed in green scrubs appeared in front of them. She smiled warmly and said, It's a boy. Both mother and baby are safe. You can wait in the recovery room. Then she walked off briskly. See, I told you boys could have sharp voices, Yupa teased with delight. All right, let's head to the recovery room, Hia suggested. I should head back to the shop and tidy up, Yupa replied. Come on, don't leave now. What if the baby cries? Sak isn't here yet. Stay and help me out. I'll drop you off and help you tidy up later. Well, okay then, Yupa agreed. When they reached the private recovery room, they found Sroi resting with the baby. The nurse had just wheeled them in. Despite looking tired, Sroi smiled happily. Well, aren't you thrilled? You have a son now, Hia said, leaning on the edge of the bed. Sroi nodded. Is Sak here yet, Hia? Not yet, but he'll be here soon, Hia reassured her. Sroi turned to Yupa, then back to her brother. Hia, make sure to drop Yupa off and help her clean up her shop. I knocked over a lot of things earlier when I panicked. All right, Hia replied, resigned. Seeing her brother agree so easily, Sroi felt relieved and seized the opportunity to press further. Yupa dear, Sroi called. Yes, Je? Yupa stepped closer. Can you take care of Hia for me while I recover? Sroi, Hia interrupted, scolding her. I can take care of myself. Don't trouble her. But I'll feel guilty if I don't ask her to help. Do you want me to worry? Hia fell silent for a moment, then relented. Fine, but don't overthink things, all right? He gently patted his sister's head, then looked fondly at his plump nephew, who was sleeping soundly. Well, I'd better get going. I'll help Yupa tidy up her shop, he said. Thank you, Hia, Sroi said, unable to hide her delight. Do you need anything before I leave? Are you hungry? I can get you something. Watching the exchange, Yupa felt a warmth in her heart. The sibling bond between Hia and Sroi was filled with love and care, something Yupa had never experienced herself. As an orphan, she had grown up under the care of her aunt, Yi, who was often absent. After years of unanswered questions, Yupa had stopped asking altogether. Yupa, wait a moment. I'll go buy some bread and milk for Sroi. Do you want anything? Hia asked kindly. No, Hia, I'm fine. Looking at such an adorable baby has taken away my appetite, Yupa replied with a smile. When Syntheporn left the room, Sroi quickly motioned for Yupa to come closer. Yes, Je? Don't forget, Yupa, you have to win Hia's heart, Sroi reminded her. But. No buts. Just be a little bold. I promise, Hia is a gentleman who takes responsibility, Sroi encouraged enthusiastically. Really, Je? I don't think I can do that. Yupa, please help me. I'm really stressed about this, Sroi said, turning on the waterworks. Tears streamed down her face, catching Yupa off guard. Je Sroi, are you in pain? It's not my body, it's my heart, Yupa. I'm heartbroken because I can't convince you to help me. Hia and I only have each other, and I want him to be happy with someone good. All right, Je, I'll try. Please don't cry, Yupa said, finally agreeing. You promise? Don't let me down. I promise. Just then, Syntheporn returned with a bag of bread and fresh milk. He placed it on a nearby table for easy access. I just called Sack. He's almost here. I'll head out now. Call me if you need anything, Hia said. Okay, Hia. Make sure to drop Yupa off, Sroi reminded him. On the way back, Hia broke the silence. Have you known Sroi for long, Yupa? Yes, for quite a while. Je Sroi often orders large batches of snacks from me, Yupa replied. I see, Hia said, finally understanding why the snacks from Sroi always tasted familiar. Soft, flavorful, and made without cutting corners. Here we are at the market. Let's tidy up the shop, he said. Okay. The two of them worked together to clean up Yupa's small snack stall. It didn't take long, as the stall was modest and carried mostly traditional sweets. Do you usually come here alone? Hia asked curiously. Yes, I usually load the snacks into Uncle Man's truck, Yupa explained. I see. If you need help, just let me know, Hia offered, flashing a wide smile. Sensing her glance, he quickly added, Sroi would worry if I didn't help. Hia, you really love Je Sroi. I wish I had a brother like you, Yupa said, half joking. Well, I could be your brother too, Hia replied, grinning. His words made Yupa's heart sink. She had been hired to make him fall in love, not to see her as a sister. That's my house right there, Yupa pointed to a small wooden house surrounded by a rickety old fence overgrown with ivy and weeds. It's pitch black, Hia muttered as he decided to get out of the truck to accompany her. Go turn on the lights. I'll wait here. Who do you live with? With my aunt, but Auntie isn't home much, Yupa explained. She quickly climbed up the creaky wooden stairs to the house, making Syntheporn wince. He watched anxiously, concerned about her safety. Once the lights were on, he bid her goodbye but not before reminding her to lock up properly. He also mentioned that he would send Jod and Kun to help repair the house someday. Yupa watched Hia's truck disappear into the distance, feeling a warm glow in her heart. Chapter 5. Hia's Loneliness. Hia. Last evening, Puna came back here. She was calling for you non-stop, Jod reported first thing in the morning as soon as Hia Sin arrived. Synthoporn's heart pounded. He hadn't expected his estranged wife to return. What did she say? She kept crying out, Hia, Hia. Her eyes were red, and her face was flushed, Kun added, mimicking her expression dramatically. Maybe her foreign husband hit her, Jod joked with a snicker. Serves her right, Hia, Kun chimed in. Enough. Stop gossiping about her. Synthoporn cut them off. He shifted his focus to the tractor that had been dropped off for repairs the previous day but remained untouched. His thoughts, however, were filled with Puna. He grabbed an old white shirt, now stained with engine oil, and wiped his hands. The shirt, once a gift from Puna, had been repurposed for cleaning after she left. Did something happen to you, Puna? Though he had tried to move on, memories of their relationship still stirred concern for her. Hia Sin. Yupa's voice broke through his thoughts as she brought him breakfast. Even though he had already asked Jod and Kun to grab some deep-fried dough sticks for him, he hadn't touched them, knowing Yupa would bring a full meal as usual. I'm here. You could have sent one of the kids around the market to deliver this, Yupa. You didn't have to come yourself, Hia said, taking the food. The aroma of freshly cooked rice was tantalizing. It's no trouble, Hia. Here's some iced coffee too. J.E. said you love it, Yupa said, handing him a bag of the drink. He smiled warmly. This afternoon, I'll have the boys help fix your stairs and fence. Those old wooden planks are dangerous, he offered. Oh, thank you so much, Hia, Yupa said, bowing deeply in gratitude, her admiration for his kindness growing. No problem. Just think of me as a big brother. Now I'm off to eat, he said. The word big brother struck Yupa like a dagger, deepening her frustration. Perhaps it was time to deploy the more daring tactics J.E. Sroi had suggested. By the afternoon, Hia's 2 employees were busy repairing Yupa's house as promised. Meanwhile, Ta Man, a nearby vendor, returned to retrieve something he had forgotten and couldn't resist spreading the news to the entire market. His wife, Yabua, enthusiastically embellished the story. By 3 p.m., rumors of Yupa marrying Hia Sin had spread like wildfire. Customers swarmed Yupa's stall, congratulating her and buying her sweets, despite her repeated denials and attempts to explain the truth. But people love sensational gossip, and the truth often takes a back seat. This is perfect, Yupa. I've been hoping things would progress quickly, Sroi said as she nursed her baby. Word is Puna's new husband dumped her. She'll probably come back to manipulate Hia again soon. Yupa had come to Sroi to vent but ended up receiving another round of encouragement. You look so much stronger now, J.E. And your baby looks so healthy, Yupa said, glancing at the baby sucking contentedly. Yep, I'll probably be discharged this evening. But Yupa, you need to act fast. Don't forget, this isn't just about helping me and Hia. You'll be free from your debts too, Sroi reminded her, playing her trump card. Knowing Yupa was burdened by her remaining debts, Sroi's words reignited her determination. All right, J.E. I'll do it, Yupa agreed, her eyes filled with resolve. Good girl. Sroi beamed, almost dropping her baby in her excitement. Soon, we'll all be one big family. And trust me, the Chinese family thing isn't as scary as people say. It's about individual personalities, not race. Sroi's tone grew more serious, recalling the bitter argument she had with Puna shortly before she left. Puna had insulted Sroi, calling her deceitful and hurling derogatory remarks about her Chinese heritage. Damn that Puna, Sroi muttered under her breath, clenching her jaw. She couldn't wait for the day when Puna would see Hia with a new, younger, prettier, and kinder wife. The thought fueled her excitement. She silently cheered for Yupa, determined to make her dream come true. Chapter 6. Hia loses control. What's all this, Yupa? Why did you bring so much food? By evening, everyone else will have gone home. What am I supposed to do with it all? Hia Sin complained, his voice grumbling in mock frustration. Yupa smiled sweetly, undeterred. Today, she had resolved to win Hia's heart, and perhaps more. It's nothing, Hia. I just wanted to thank you for fixing so many things for me, she said, bowing deeply in gratitude. I told you it's no problem. But you'd better help me eat all this. There's not even a stray dog around here to finish it off, he grumbled again, but Yupa only smiled wider. I'll eat with you, Hia. Right here. The weather's nice and cool, she said cheerfully. Hia Sin was initially about to frown but quickly gave in. Having company for dinner was better than spending another lonely evening. Besides, what he feared most was Puna showing up late at night, possibly begging for him back, and him being too weak to refuse. "All right, sit here then," he said, gesturing to a spot nearby. Yupa began unpacking the rice and dishes, placing them neatly in bowls. The aroma of catfish curry filled the air, making Hia smile. "You're quite the woman, Yupa. You can cook, you can make sweets. Whoever marries you will be the luckiest man alive," he said absent-mindedly as he looked at the food. "Thank you," Yupa replied, handing him a spoon. She joined him in the meal, savoring each bite until suddenly, she appeared to remember something. "Oh no! I forgot to bring the water," she exclaimed, standing up quickly. Hia, chewing a bite of fish, pointed towards the kitchen. "There's a jug in the kitchen. Go grab it." "I'll get it right away," Yupa replied, hurrying off. As she passed Hia's bed on the way to the kitchen, her heart raced. Shaking off her nerves, she found the jug, filled a small bowl with ice, and then ladled water from the clay jar nearby. She hesitated for a moment before sprinkling in the magic powder that Sroi had given her, claiming it would work wonders. Taking a deep breath to calm her nerves, Yupa returned to the table and handed the bowl to Hia. He drank deeply, letting out a loud burp afterward. "Sorry about that, Yupa. I had a fishbone stuck in my throat," Hia said sheepishly, wiping his mouth. Yupa, trying to mask her nervousness, kept eating, though her hands were trembling. "Why are your hands shaking?" Hia asked, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, I was just rushing to get the ice," Yupa stammered, her hands shaking even more. Hia shrugged and continued eating, oblivious to Yupa's growing anticipation. "Yupa!" he called suddenly, startling her so much that she choked. He quickly handed her the bowl of water, and she drank hurriedly, spilling some in her haste. "Oh no!" she cried, realizing she had just consumed a good amount of the dosed water herself. Hia, unaware, polished off the rest, leaving only the ice. "Finished. Thanks for the meal, Yupa. I ate everything tonight, even the soup," he said, patting his stomach. Yupa swallowed hard, nervous about what would happen next. Then, Hia's face twisted into a confused expression. "Yupa, I feel strange. What's going on? What do you mean?" Yupa asked, feigning innocence, though her own body was starting to feel warm and restless. Hia stood abruptly, fidgeting and pulling at the waistband of his pants. His eyes widened in alarm. "What did you put in the curry?" he demanded. "And nothing. I didn't put anything in the curry," Yupa admitted, her voice trembling. I put it in the water." Hia's patience snapped. He lunged forward, grabbing Yupa by the arm. She didn't resist. If anything, she felt a strange pull towards him, her mind overwhelmed by the potion's effects. Hia carried her into the house, setting her down on his small single bed, which suddenly seemed just big enough for two. His usual scent of motor oil clung faintly to him, even as he removed his shirt. The night ahead was one neither of them would forget. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. The next morning. "Hia, why didn't you turn off the lights?" Jod's loud voice outside jolted Yupa awake. Groggily, she opened her eyes to see a shadow moving quickly to turn off the lights and then heading toward the room. "Perfect." Yupa sprang into action, pulling the blanket tightly around her. Jod froze in the doorway, his legs seemingly rooted to the spot. He stammered, his brain short-circuiting. Unable to bear his gaze, Yupa dashed into the bathroom, blanket in tow. Her sudden movement stirred the man lying next to her. "Oh, Jod," Hia Sin greeted groggily, clearly unaware of the situation. Hia, maybe you should put something on first," Jod suggested awkwardly. That was when Hia began to piece everything together. Quickly glancing at the now empty spot beside him, he noticed only a faint stain of blood on the sheets. Turning back to Jod, he followed the direction of his employee's nervous finger, which pointed toward the bathroom. Realization dawned, and Hia hastily grabbed a pair of silk pants and slipped them on. "Get out! And don't let Kun come in either," Hia barked. Jod nodded frantically and bolted as if his life depended on it. Hia sat back down on the bed, rubbing his face repeatedly, deep in thought. After a moment, he stood and walked to the bathroom door, where he could hear muffled sobbing. "Yupa, come out. Please," he said softly. "No. Just go away." I'll stay in here, she replied, her voice trembling. But I really need to use the bathroom. If you don't open the door, I'll break it down, Hia threatened lightly. The door creaked open slightly, and Hia stepped inside, closing it firmly behind him with a loud click. Hia! Yupa exclaimed, her face turning crimson. What's wrong? Hia asked teasingly, stepping closer. Yupa backed away until she hit the large dragon-patterned water jar. Her retreat halted. Hia reached out, gently tilting her chin up with his hand. His touch was soft, almost tender. I haven't forgotten, Yupa. I belong to you now, he whispered. Gulp. Yupa swallowed hard, feeling both ashamed and flustered. She stammered, I am sorry, Hia. I really had no choice. As she started to kneel in apology, Hia grabbed her shoulders, preventing her from bowing. Leaning in close, he whispered in her ear, his voice warm and soothing. I'm not angry. Thank you. With that, he pulled the blanket away from her and slipped out of his own pants once more. No work for us today, he said with a laugh. After catching their breath, they cleaned up together. Before Yupa left, Hia handed her a vintage t-shirt worth several thousand baht, insisting she wear it. He told her to hurry home, reminding her to dress properly and avoid wandering anywhere unnecessary, as he didn't want anyone else to see her like this. Chapter 8. The Reward. Instead of heading straight home, Yupa decided to visit Sroi's two-story house. As soon as Sroi saw the younger woman wearing her brother's shirt, she nearly smacked her own thighs in excitement. Only the presence of her mother-in-law, busy cooking in the kitchen, kept her from shouting with glee. Yupa! Sroi whispered, motioning for her to come closer. She had her baby in her lap, sleeping soundly after a recent feeding. Yes, Yupa replied, sitting down nearby. Her face was pale, and she looked exhausted. Sroi gasped. Did he keep you up all night, Yupa? Yupa nodded hesitantly, avoiding eye contact. And this morning too? Sroi pressed. Yes, Yupa admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Well, that's good. It means Hia likes you. Even after the potion wore off, he couldn't resist. Oh, I'd love to see Hia's face right now, Sroi said, unable to hide her delight. But I can't face Hia or anyone else at the shop anymore. One of the employees saw. Yupa trailed off, her lips quivering. Ah, I understand. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Those boys won't gossip, I promise, Sroi reassured her, making a shushing noise as she heard her mother-in-law approaching. Who are you talking to, Sroi? The elder woman, always wearing a gentle smile, appeared at the doorway. Yupa quickly bowed respectfully. Who's this? A friend of yours? The mother-in-law asked curiously. Sroi grinned widely. My sister-in-law. Isn't she beautiful? Yupa blushed furiously, lowering her head. Sroi's mother-in-law studied her closely before nodding in approval. She's very pretty. A good match for Syntheporn. See, Yupa? Even Ma agrees. Ma, please watch the baby for a moment, Sroi said, handing over the child. The older woman looked puzzled but complied. Walk slowly, Sroi. The elder called as Sroi hurried off. Yes, Ma. Curious about Sroi's intentions, Yupa waited. Before long, Sroi returned with a small drawstring pouch. She handed it to Yupa with a wink. Here's your reward, Yupa. You've earned it. Yupa took the pouch, understanding its significance. The deal was done, and this was her payment. Yet, her heart was heavy. If Hia ever found out she had been hired to sleep with him, would he still call her his wife? Would he still see himself as her husband? Exhausted, Yupa returned home. She skipped her usual routine of selling sweets, instead hiding the money in a safe place before collapsing onto an old pillow on her porch. Within moments, she was fast asleep. You're such a heavy sleeper. I was so worried about you, and here you are napping outside. A familiar voice grumbled overhead. Yupa opened her eyes groggily to find Hia Sin standing above her, fanning away mosquitoes with a checkered cloth. Hia! She exclaimed, sitting up quickly. The midday sun was blazing, indicating it was already late. Why are you here? He smiled slyly, his eyes crinkling. Well, you didn't bring me lunch today, so I got worried. Oh, I forgot, Hia. Are you very hungry? I'll cook something right away, she offered, feeling guilty. Hia nodded dramatically. Yes, I'm starving. But don't rush, I'll wait. Wait for what? Yupa couldn't help but feel uneasy at his mischievous grin. She moved swiftly to the kitchen, her hands expertly preparing rice and whatever ingredients she could find. Hia watched from the doorway, impressed by her skill. What are you making, Yupa? He asked, leaning in so close that his breath tickled her ear. Oh, just turmeric omelette, Hia. I don't have any fresh ingredients, she stammered, pounding the turmeric with a mortar and pestle. Are you sure there's nothing fresh? He teased, his tone playful. Stop it, Hia, she cried, holding up the large pestle threateningly. He laughed nervously, retreating to his seat. The aroma of boiling rice filled the kitchen. Hia walked over and said, Yupa, could I have some rice water? Just a little. Of course, Hia. She ladled the thick rice water into a cup, adding a bit of warm water to keep the rice from becoming too stiff. Here you go, Hia, she said, handing him the cup. Thank you. You're such a sweetheart, he said, finishing it in one gulp. He felt content, happier than he had been in years. Time passed quickly as they shared a simple meal. The rice and turmeric omelette disappeared completely, but Hia showed no sign of leaving. Hia, you should go now. If Uncle Man comes back, he'll start asking questions, Yupa urged. Let him ask. Shouldn't he know that I'm your husband now? Hia replied stubbornly. Yupa sighed. If you don't leave, I won't talk to you anymore. Fine, fine. After everything, you're just going to ditch me, he teased, pulling her into a playful hug and planting a loud kiss on her cheek. Smooch. You're the best. Now go, Hia, she said, pushing him away, her cheeks flushed. All right, but promise me you won't abandon me too, he said, giving her a mischievous look. Fine. Fine as in? Fine, I promise. Now hurry up. It's almost 3 p.m. Okay, I'm going, he said, finally relenting. Chapter 9. Puna returns. As Hia Sin pulled into the repair shop and hopped off his motorbike, he immediately froze. Someone was rising to their feet and running toward him. Hia H. Hick. Jad. Kun. Hia bellowed, but it seemed his 2 employees had already anticipated trouble and disappeared. Hia, Puna cried, throwing her arms around him. Tears streamed down her face as she pressed her head against his chest. I've come back to you. Why? Puna looked up, her lips trembling. How can you say that, Hia? You already have a new husband. Why come back to me? Though his voice carried anger, Hia's words were still restrained. Puna grabbed his hand and placed it over her heart, catching him off guard. What are you doing, Puna? You're still in my heart, Hia. How could I ever leave you? Syntheporn shook his head, calling out for his employees again. Jad. Kun. They've gone to the market, Hia, Puna said impatiently. Why? I told them to. I didn't want them interfering while we make up. Make up? Who said anything about making up? Hia stepped back, heading toward the shop, but Puna hurried to block his path, keeping up with his larger strides. Hia, you must be mad at me. Let's talk this out inside. You must be starving by now, she said, pressing her chest against his back. Syntheporn closed his eyes, exhaling slowly to suppress his irritation. Leave. The last bus leaves soon, he said through gritted teeth. Hia. It's over, Puna. It was over the day you left and took my prized amulet collection with you. Do you even realize how much those were worth? Behind him, Puna gulped audibly. I didn't take them. I only took 5,000 baht. That Lao guy must have taken the amulets. Syntheporn spun to face her, disbelief in his eyes. Puna quickly donned a pitiful expression. Enough. That Lao guy was your husband. Show him some respect, Hia said coldly. But Hia. Puna stomped her foot in frustration. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. Fine, he replied sharply, striding quickly out of the shop. Hia, where are you going? He paused, turning to face her one last time. To my new wife's house. When you're gone, let Jad and Kun know so they can tell me, he said, mounting his motorbike and speeding off. No, you can't do this to me. Puna's shrill scream was drowned out by the rumble of the bike's engine as Hia drove off, leaving his past behind without a second thought. Hia arrived at Sroi's house, greeted by the barking of dogs. It had been a while since he last visited, but the dogs remembered him well, wagging their tails enthusiastically. Well, it really is you, Hia. I can't believe my ears. Sroi called out loudly as she came outside, cradling her baby. Yeah. I couldn't stay at the shop, Hia said, patting one of the dogs affectionately. What's wrong? Puna came back. She's at the shop now, he answered, sounding exasperated. That shameless woman. Who's watching the shop then? No one. She sent Jod and Kun to the market. I didn't lock the shop either. Sroi's jaw dropped. You're unbelievable, Hia. She could steal from you again. Well, I wasn't thinking straight, he admitted, scratching his head sheepishly. Then let's go lock the shop. Everything that was earned by your hard work. Don't let anyone take advantage of you. Sroi scolded. Are you my sister or my mother? Hia teased with a chuckle. Maybe both. It would make finding you a wife easier, Sroi shot back. Wasn't Yupa part of your plan all along? He countered, raising an eyebrow. Sroi smiled mischievously. Well, who told Yupa to spike my drink? Never mind that, Hia. It's not important now, she deflected. Oh, really? Yes. So, what's your plan now? Hia asked, narrowing his eyes at his scheming sister. Sroi set her baby down on a marble bench and began outlining her idea. Announce your marriage to Yupa to everyone in the market. Bring her to the shop. Let's see how stubborn Puna can be. But Hia shook his head. I don't want Yupa involved in this mess. She doesn't deserve it, he said firmly. Sroi covered her mouth to stifle her laughter. Oh, you're smitten with her already, aren't you? Hia's face softened into a smile. Maybe. She's easygoing, hardworking, and doesn't complain. Sroi clapped her hands excitedly, accidentally startling her baby. She quickly rocked him back to sleep. It's nothing, little one. Mommy's just happy, she cooed. Hia shook his head and turned toward his bike. Where are you going now? Sroi asked. To see Yupa. Oh, by the way, lend me 30,000 baht. I want to buy her some gold. Can't have her being my wife without anything to show for it, he said with a grin. Sroi's face fell. I gave all my cash to Yupa this morning. What? When you had your baby, I gave you 100,000 baht. Where did it go? Sak needed it. Just use your card to withdraw some, she suggested. Fine. I'll go now, he said, hopping onto his bike. Sroi watched him ride off, smiling to herself. She couldn't wait to see how Puna would react when her plan unfolded. Would she leave quietly, or would Sroi have to intervene? Chapter 10. Auntie. I'm not going, Hia. I'm too embarrassed to face Jesu at the gold shop, Yupa said, cutting banana leaves with a machete and dodging the sticky sap from the stems. Oh, come on, Yupa. Just a little bit. I'm not buying a lot, just a tiny bit, like the size of a shrimp's whisker, Hia Sin teased, trying to convince her. But Yupa remained stubborn. I don't like wearing gold, Hia. What do you like then? Diamonds and white gold, of course, she lied with a playful smile, dragging the banana leaves toward a bamboo platform. Hia, carrying the rest, placed them down with her. Is that so? He muttered, deep in thought, falling quiet. Can I stay here tonight, Yupa? He asked suddenly. What? Yupa exclaimed, startled. I've got a situation to deal with, he said, scratching his head but avoiding mentioning Puna. You can't, Hia. My aunt just came back, and she's sleeping upstairs right now. I don't want her to know. Perfect. I'll tell her you're my wife, Hia declared with confidence. No. That's not a good idea, Hia, Yupa protested, her voice shaking. Why not? Am I not good enough? Am I too old? Synthoporn began to doubt himself. She had been the one to seduce him, yet now she seemed reluctant to acknowledge their relationship. No, it's not that, Hia. My aunt. She's a drunk, and she's really grumpy too. Yupa's face fell, her cheerful demeanor replaced by worry. Her aunt's sudden return had brought trouble. The last 10,000 baht of her savings had vanished overnight, leaving her panicked as she still owed money to one of her creditors. Do you need my help? Hia asked, concerned by her change in mood. No, it's fine, Yupa said, shaking her head. Come live with me. Let's get married. I'll take care of you, Hia offered sincerely. Hia, Yupa was caught off guard. Come set up a shop in front of my garage. You can sell whatever you want. I'll support you completely, he promised. Would that really be okay? She asked, her eyes glistening with tears. Of course. Let's do it, he said firmly. Yupa nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks as Hia gently wiped them away. As they spoke, someone nearby was eavesdropping, plotting with a sly grin. Yupa, come here, called Aunt Hia, a striking woman in her 40s, sitting in her favorite rocking chair. Tonight, she was unusually sober. Yes, Aunt Hia, Yupa said, crawling to her obediently. Aunt Hia liked to see Yupa kneel before her, and the younger woman complied without hesitation. You've asked about your parents before, Aunt Hia began. Yupa looked up, stunned. I'm ready to tell you now. Where are they, Aunt? Where are my parents? Yupa asked eagerly. First, you need to get me 200,000 baht. Without it, I can't take you to them. But I don't have that kind of money, Aunt. Yupa cried, her excitement giving way to despair. Well, you're seeing that garage owner, aren't you? He's loaded. I'm only giving you this opportunity because I think you have a real chance to find your parents. But I'm not really with Hia Sin, Yupa protested. Lies. I heard it with my own ears. That man called you his wife, and you agreed to move in with him. Where's your bride price, Yupa? Will you be happy while your parents suffer? Aunt Hia accused relentlessly. The pressure mounted. Yupa started to consider asking Hia for an advance on the bride price. Surely he wouldn't refuse. Well, I'll give you one night to think it over. By tomorrow evening, I'm leaving and this chance will be gone, Auntie said, dismissing her with a wave of her hand. Go. Think it over carefully, Yupa. Carefully, she warned. Yupa returned to her room, burdened by the dark secrets surrounding her parents. Why did her life have to be so difficult? Others didn't face such challenges, but she had to find a way to meet the demands to see her parents. She sobbed uncontrollably, her tears flowing like a river. Aunt Hia had told her that her parents had left her in her care and never returned. How many parents abandon their children like that? Yet, Yupa clung to the hope that her parents might have had a valid reason. The 200,000 baht seemed like the only answer to her questions. That night, she fell asleep with tear-streaked cheeks. Outside, rain poured relentlessly. In her dreams, she saw her wedding with Hia, their future child, and a terrible storm that tore them apart. She called out for him desperately. Hia! In her dream, she finally found him, but he was in bed with Puna. Devastated, Yupa covered her face and cried. A distant clap of thunder jolted Yupa awake. It was nearly dawn, her eyes swollen from crying. She felt too drained to sell sweets today. From the adjacent room, her aunt's snores echoed rhythmically. Yupa wanted so badly to ask Aunt Hia how she was related to her parents. Was she their friend? Her father's sister? But Yi forbade her from asking, leaving Yupa in the dark. She decided to wait for daylight and figure out her next move. Should she go to Hia, or wait for him to come to her? After all, he had spent the night at Sroi's house instead of the shop. In the end, she chose to wait. Chapter 11. Yupa lies to Hia. Instead of meeting at her house, Hia Sin and Yupa unexpectedly crossed paths on the road. Hia was riding his motorbike to see her, while she was walking toward him, hoping to meet him halfway and avoid having Aunt Hia overhear their conversation. Hia! Yupa waved excitedly. Hia turned off his engine and smiled brightly. Where are you going, Yupa? I was just heading to your place. Can you come with me for a bit, Hia? She asked. He noticed her swollen eyes and felt concerned, but he nodded in agreement. Yupa led him across the rice fields to a small shelter he had built during the last harvest. Yupa, is something wrong? Yes, Hia. I need to ask you a favor, she said hesitantly. Anything. Tell me, I'll do it, he replied without hesitation. Hia, you're planning to marry me, right? She asked softly. His smile widened. Yes. Is there a problem? Can I ask for a dowry of 200,000 baht? Hia burst into laughter, thinking it was a joke. He hadn't expected such a serious request in the middle of a field. Of course. I can give you more if you want, he said, still laughing. That's enough, Hia. But, can I have it by today? His laughter faded, replaced by confusion. Sure, but I'll need to withdraw it. Why do you need it so soon? Is your aunt upset? Yupa met his gaze, took his rough hands in hers, and wished he would hold her. She hated lying to him. Yes, Hia, but I'll explain later. For now, I just need the money before this afternoon, she said, her voice trembling with guilt. All right. Wait here. I'll go and come back quickly, Hia said, turning toward his motorbike. Thank you, Hia, she whispered as he sped off. Once he was gone, she let herself cry again. Would he hate her if he knew the truth? As she sat there, her feelings for Hia deepened. It was a love she couldn't fully explain. If all went well, she vowed to return to him after seeing her parents. About 30 minutes later, Hia Sin returned, panting and holding a brown paper bag. He also brought her a coconut smoothie. I thought you might be thirsty from waiting, he said with a grin. Hia, thank you so much, Yupa said, throwing her arms around him, tears streaming down her cheeks. She kissed him on both cheeks, leaving Hia grinning from ear to ear. Hug me like this, and I'll get too excited, Yupa, he teased playfully. Yupa set the bag down beside her and began unbuttoning her shirt, one button at a time. Hia's eyes widened in shock. Yupa. That night, I became your wife without realizing it. Now, I know exactly what I'm doing. I love you, Hia. Let me fulfill my role as your wife, she said, her voice steady. Hia's breath quickened. He could barely move as she removed her blouse and bra, leaving only her sarong. Someone might see us, he warned, but she shook her head, gently pushing him to lie down. This is Uncle Boonmi's field. He's been in Bangkok for months, she reassured him. Her hands moved confidently, loosening his silk pants and pulling them off. It's afternoon already, Hia. I need to go, Yupa whispered, fully dressed again. She looked at him with a mix of longing and sorrow. Hia sat up, glancing at the blazing sun overhead. That went by too fast. I want more time with you, Yupa. I have to go, Hia. Before she could leave, Hia pulled her onto his lap, burying his face in her neck and planting kisses on her cheeks. By the time he let her go, Yupa's lips were swollen from his affection. Tomorrow, I'll come see you. But tonight, I have to go to the city, he called after her. Yupa turned back to smile at him once before hurrying off with a paper bag in hand. That evening, Aunt He was taking her to meet her parents. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I don't know when I'll return. If I do, I'll beg for your forgiveness and accept whatever punishment you see fit. Chapter 12. Hia loses his wife? Aunt He counted the money with satisfaction before addressing Yupa, who sat nearby with a gloomy expression. Pack your things. We're leaving now. But it's just past noon, Yupa protested, her voice laced with hesitation. Aunt He's face darkened instantly. What? Are you planning not to go? No, I'll go. Just wait for me, Yupa replied hurriedly, rising to gather a few of her better outfits into a small bag. She hoped it wouldn't take long. Her thoughts were consumed by Hia Sin. The two of them waited at a coffee shop for their ride, sipping iced coffee. Yupa barely touched hers, her mood heavy. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a familiar figure. It was Hia Sin, walking past with 3 other men. Yi smirked knowingly and calmly sipped her coffee, while Yupa ducked behind her bag to avoid being seen. Go! 3 coffees, 1 without cream. Hia called to the barista. Yupa panicked. He was sitting in the same coffee shop. She hid behind her bag as Hia focused on discussing business with his companions. Aunt, when will the bus come? Yupa whispered nervously. There it is, Aunt He said, gesturing toward the approaching vehicle. When the bus pulled up, the 2 women quickly climbed aboard, carrying their luggage. Hia caught a glimpse of them out of the corner of his eye but turned back to his friends, dismissing it. Don't worry, Sin. My father will handle everything. I'm looking forward to meeting your lady, Somyong said with a grin. Thanks. She's sweet, kind, and simple, Hia replied proudly. That's the spirit. Finally, you found a good woman to settle down with. As the group enjoyed their coffee and snacks, Hia overheard Mui, the shop owner's wife, talking to her husband. Hia, wasn't that Auntie just now? Mui asked. Yes, that was her, Go confirmed. Where's she taking her niece? Mui wondered aloud. No idea. I didn't dare ask, but can you trust someone like her? Hia froze. Standing abruptly, He approached Go at the counter. Are you sure it was Aunt Yi and Yupa? He asked urgently. Go nodded. Positive. Yupa used to bring sweets to sell here all the time. Fueled by panic, Hia grabbed his car keys from the table in front of his friends. Hey, where are you going? Tom asked, startled. Is something wrong? Samyong added. My wife's trying to run away, Hia said, his face filled with determination. What? Both men exclaimed in shock. Hia and his two friends raced after the bus in a pickup truck, Hia flooring the accelerator. Slow down, Sin. You'll kill us. Samyong protested, gripping the seat tightly. But Hia couldn't hear him over the roar of his emotions. Get off at the next stop. I'm bringing my wife back no matter what, Hia declared, his voice trembling with frustration. What was Yupa thinking, deceiving him and then leaving like this? He couldn't let it happen again. Samyong and Tom exchanged knowing glances, silently agreeing. This guy loves deeply and fights hard. Even after dropping his friends off and chasing the bus as fast as the truck would go, Hia ultimately lost sight of it. Frustrated, Hia stopped at a station where the bus had recently passed. Spotting the driver checking his vehicle, Hia approached him. Excuse me, can I ask you something? Sure. Hia. What is it? The driver replied. Do you remember seeing a petite woman in her 20s with an older woman, maybe late 30s or early 40s? Both carrying bags. The driver scratched his head, thinking hard. I didn't notice much, Hia. Hia sighed heavily but pulled a 1,000 baht note from his pocket. Try to remember. This is yours if you can help. The driver's eyes lit up. Give me a moment to think. After a pause, the driver brightened. A woman with dyed red hair, kind of curly? Yes, that's her. Hia exclaimed. She got off just now. Usually she travels alone, but this time she had a younger woman with her. Where did they go? Hia demanded. Right here, Hia. She works at that gambling den down the road, the driver said, pointing to a building with flashing lights. A gambling den? Hia shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. Yep. I've been there a couple of times myself. She's the wife of the boss, a guy named Pon. What? It's true, Hia. Go check it out if you don't believe me, the driver insisted. Hia shoved the money into the driver's pocket. Thanks for your help. No problem, Hia. Good luck, the driver replied, pocketing the cash. As Hia walked toward his truck, his heart pounded with worry. If what the driver said was true, what should he do to protect Yupa? Chapter 13. The Wicked Couple's Evil Plan. So, this is the friend's daughter you were talking about? She's quite a beauty, said Pon, the gambling den's boss, his thick mustache twitching as he looked Yupa over. Yupa felt uneasy and quickly nudged Aunt Yi. Aunt, where are my parents? I'll take you to them tomorrow. Now, greet Uncle Pon properly, Yi said, a hint of irritation in her voice. But with the 200,000 baht safely tucked in her bag, she managed to keep her composure. Hello, Uncle, Yupa said, bowing politely. Pon smirked, his interest growing. She's pretty, but she's not a virgin anymore, Pon commented, clearly pleased. Yi chuckled dryly, and Yupa looked at her aunt, confused. What does that mean, Aunt? Nothing to worry about, Yi replied dismissively. All right. Your name's Yupa, right? I'll have Lam show you to your room. You must be tired from the trip, Pon said, slipping into a facade of kindness. He called over a young woman about Yupa's age. Yes, Uncle Pon. Lam responded promptly. Take Yupa to see her room. Let her rest for now, he instructed. Sure, Lam said, leading Yupa to the employee quarters. Yi, meanwhile, lit a cigarette and leaned back with a smug smile. You're in a good mood, huh? Pon joined her, lighting his own cigarette. Don't you feel any attachment? Pon asked. Yi shrugged indifferently. She's just the daughter of a friend. I raised her, so it's time she gave something back. Well said. With her looks and innocence, the rich men will love her. She should fetch at least 600,000 baht, Pon said, exhaling smoke. 600,000? But the girl's already had a husband, Yi said, feigning disappointment. Ah, what a waste. Won't her husband come after her? Pon asked. He won't catch up. I already had her trick him into giving me 200,000 before we left, Yi boasted. Her husband must be wealthy then? Yeah, he owns a garage, Yi replied smugly. Unbeknownst to them, Synthoporn had been sitting quietly at a nearby table, nursing a glass of liquor. He overheard every word, his heart pounding with anger and concern. Yupa, what bad luck you've had, Hia murmured to himself. Fortunately, they hadn't sold her yet. He needed to warn her before it was too late. Leaving a 500 baht note on the table, Hia slipped away, circling around the employee quarters. A guard noticed him wandering and called out. Hey! Where are you going? Hia quickly feigned drunkenness, swaying unsteadily. Gotta pee, he slurred, stumbling. Then use the bathroom, not here, the guard barked. Hia grinned and pointed vaguely. Can't find it, he mumbled. Come on, I'll show you, the guard grumbled, dragging Hia toward the restroom. Thanks, buddy, Hia muttered, pretending to lean against the wall. Once the guard left, Hia sighed in relief. He needed to regroup and call his friends for backup. This wouldn't be an easy fight. He might be willing to play the hero, but even heroes needed reinforcements. Meanwhile, Yupa sat uneasily in the shared room. Her doubts about Aunt Yi's intentions grew stronger. If tomorrow brought more trouble, she would have to find a way to escape. Can't sleep, huh? Asked her roommate, a woman curled up under a blanket, shivering. Yupa turned to her. No, I can't. Are you feeling sick? It's cramps. Terrible ones, the woman said weakly. Have you taken any medicine? I have some paracetamol with me, Yupa offered kindly. Thanks, but paracetamol doesn't work for me. I need stronger clinic pills, at least 3 or 4 at a time. Yupa gasped. That's dangerous. You'll ruin your health. Why don't you see a doctor? How? They've got guards everywhere, watching us like hawks, the woman said bitterly. Yupa's heart sank. She suspected her roommate had been tricked into a life of exploitation. I bet you don't know they plan to sell you, do you? The woman added. Sell me? Yupa asked, her voice trembling. Yeah. Why are you here anyway? Despite her pain, the woman was eager to talk. I came to find my parents. Aunt Yi said she'd bring me to them, Yupa explained, though doubt now clouded her words. That woman is the devil. She tricks girls into coming here for work, only to push them into other things, the woman said, her tone bitter. Aunt Yi raised me. She wouldn't lie to me. Would she? Yupa whispered, her faith in her aunt wavering. Well, good luck to you. You'll need it, the woman said, groaning in pain. I wish I could help you, Yupa murmured. Save yourself first. If you resist, Pawn will break you before handing you over to the clients, the woman warned. That night, the woman's words haunted Yupa as she drifted into troubled sleep. Her dreams were filled with fear. Hia. I'm so scared, she whispered in her sleep. Even in her nightmares, Hia remained in her heart. She prayed he would come to her rescue, though she doubted it would happen in time. Chapter 14. Sold off. Yi eyed Yupa with satisfaction. That morning, the girl had bathed, dressed, and approached her eagerly, ready to meet her parents. Or so she thought. The middle-aged woman exhaled a puff of smoke in Yupa's face, causing the girl to wave it away, earning a loud cackle from her aunt. You're dressed like a country bumpkin, Yupa, Yi sneered. Yupa glanced at her attire but said nothing. Her sleepless night had left her face pale and weary. I just want to meet my parents as soon as possible, she replied softly. You'll meet them soon enough. Just wait for me to finish, Yi said nonchalantly as she puffed her cigarette. Yupa stood by quietly, reflecting on her aunt's behavior. Ever since childhood, Yi had treated her with indifference, often abandoning her to fend for herself. Sometimes she'd leave her at the market to beg for leftover food from vendors. If Yupa owed her aunt any gratitude, she believed she had long repaid it. What are you staring at, Yupa? Yi snapped. Nothing, Yupa replied quickly, averting her gaze to the scene around her. A gambling den filled with people passed out from drinking or napping after a long night of games. Well, Yupa's here early. Pawn, the gambling boss, greeted her with a smirk. He leaned in to kiss Yi on the cheek, grimacing afterward. You stink of cigarettes, love. Shut up, Yi retorted with mock irritation, though her mood was notably light. Your niece wants to meet her parents. Why don't you take her? Yi said, handing over the responsibility. Sure. Her parents must be awake by now, Pon replied casually. Yupa's face lit up with hope, her smile wide and genuine. Look at that big smile. Don't forget your dear aunt when you're all happy, Yi teased, exhaling more smoke, her face resembling a wicked stepmother from a fairy tale. Let's go, kid. I wonder how excited your parents will be to see you, Pon said, motioning for Yupa to follow. The girl eagerly trailed behind him, leaving Yi smirking smugly. Foolish child, Yi muttered under her breath. Just a short distance away, Syntheporn started his truck's engine the moment he saw Yupa following Pon. There was no way he'd let those scumbags harm his wife. Pon drove Yupa to what appeared to be a bungalow for foreign oil workers. Syntheporn's heart raced as he imagined the horrors that awaited Yupa inside. Hurry up, Yong. Are you guys ready yet? He barked into his phone. Good. My wife's about to be sold off. Bring the cops. These people are armed and dangerous. An elderly man at a hotel had told Syntheporn about the gambling den's infamous history. Pon isn't some small-time thug, the man had warned. He's been in and out of prison countless times before building that gambling empire. With a ruthless wife like Yi by his side, his operation expanded quickly. As Yupa disappeared into one of the rooms, Syntheporn threw on a hat and approached the area casually, trying to blend in. Hey! Who are you here with? A thug guarding the entrance barked. Pon invited me, Syntheporn lied, feigning annoyance. Let him in, another thug called out. Syntheporn walked in without hesitation, noting Yupa's location and observing Pon stepping out of the room. From a hidden corner, Syntheporn overheard a conversation between Pon and his guards. How did the foreigners like her? They loved her. We're asking 400,000, Pon replied. Damn, they're drooling for her, one guard laughed. What about that guy who came in earlier? Who's he? Pon's expression darkened. Who? The guy who said he was with you, the guard clarified. Realizing his cover was blown, Syntheporn cursed under his breath. Find him. Now, Pon commanded, his voice booming. Inside the room, Yupa's suspicions were confirmed. Two foreign men reeking of alcohol entered, their hulking forms closing in on her. Perfect, one of them said. Small and delicate, just how I like them. I'm only here to find my parents. If they're not here, I'll leave, Yupa said, trying to escape, but one of the men grabbed her and tossed her onto the bed. Who goes first? I do, one said. No, me first, the other argued. As they bickered, Yupa trembled in fear, unable to see a way out. When the first man approached, she kicked him in the face, but the second grabbed her and pinned her down effortlessly. Let me go. Please, she begged, her voice trembling. Just as the men reached for her clothes, Yupa screamed the name of the one person she trusted most. Hia! Help me! Bam! The door flew open, and there he stood, her Hia, with a wooden plank in hand, ready to fight. Hia! Yupa cried, tears streaming down her face. Who the hell is this? One of the foreigners growled. Pon and his men rushed in, guns drawn. Take him out, Pon ordered. Syntheporn swung his plank, knocking down several thugs before they pointed their weapons at him. Don't shoot him! Yupa screamed, shielding Syntheporn with her body. Protecting me like this. Does it mean you love me? Syntheporn quipped, despite the dire situation. Yes, I love you, Hia. I'm sorry for lying to you, but I truly love you. Yupa confessed through her tears. Syntheporn smiled, his heart swelling with emotion. I love you too, Yupa. When we get out of here, let's get married for real. Enough of this love scene. Take her away and shoot him, Pon barked. Before anyone could act, the door was kicked open once more, and the police stormed in, guns blazing. Damn you, Syntheporn! Pon snarled as he and his gang were cuffed and dragged away. Though the ordeal was over, Syntheporn knew there was still much to settle. But for now, with Yupa safe in his arms, nothing else mattered. Chapter 15. The ending chapter. Why did you tell me you love me and then leave me, Yupa? Back at home, Syntheporn spoke with a tone of sadness as Yupa sat beside him, gently stroking his hair. I'm sorry, Hia. I won't let myself be easily misled again, Yupa replied with remorse. She felt terrible thinking about how the person who raised her turned out to be a malicious brothel owner. But she was also relieved for the other women who had been rescued from the place. "Promise me you won't leave me again," Sintapon said, holding out his pinky finger for her to link. "I promise, Hia. I'll always stay by your side," Yupa said, intertwining her pinky with his without hesitation. Even the chapter with Puna had ended. She had left 2 days ago. Now, everything seemed to be falling into place. "I'm serious. I don't believe you." "What do I have to do to make you believe me, Hia?" Yupa asked, a hint of worry in her voice. Hia smiled mischievously, lifted his head from her lap, and leaned closer, whispering, "Give me a baby first. That'll make me believe you for sure." "Hia!" Yupa exclaimed, playfully tapping his chest. But Sintapon caught her hand and kissed it. "Well, Yupa? What do you say?" Yupa blushed and smiled shyly. Finally, she nodded. "All right. Hia, you can have as many as you want. But you have to take good care of us." Sintapon grinned with joy and leaned in to kiss her cheek. "You're the joy of my life, Yupa. I love you so much. Let's go to the bedroom now." "Not in broad daylight, Hia," Yupa protested. "Daylight is perfect. If you resist, I'll just carry you," he teased. With that, Sintapon lifted her in his arms, ignoring her playful shrieks, and carried her into the bedroom. Subscribe now for more interesting stories.